Hey, everybody, thank you so much for joining us on today's podcast. It's going to be a lot of fun. I have 4 people at the table today. It's going to be great. We have some friends who are missionaries, and you're going to love it. Welcome to FBC Missions So That podcast. This is an encouraging place to hear how God is working in and around us. We know that He blesses His people so that they can bless the world around them. Join us as we discuss how to join God in all that He is doing. Why is God working in our life, church, and community? It's so that through us, the world will know that He is near. All right. So glad that you joined us today. My name is Chad. You guys probably know me. I host this podcast for First Baptist Church. It's called the So That Missions Podcast. And today I'm here with some good friends, longtime friends, who are missionaries overseas. And so glad to have you guys with us. I have Andy, Natalie, and their oldest daughter, Jenda. And so welcome, guys. How are you doing?
Thank you. Thanks for having us. We're doing well.
Doing well.
Yeah, this whole entire podcast setup is super cool, so I'm really glad to be here.
Awesome. We're so glad to have Andy. You haven't said anything.
I'm just being a gentleman, letting my daughter and wife speak.
Man, we're so glad that you guys are here with us today. We've been friends for quite a while now. I think I went to Calvary Baptist in 2010. I think pretty early on I met you guys along the way. So 15 years.
Yeah.
Jenda, how old were you 15 years ago?
I was 3, maybe 2.5.
So I think you're a little older than that the first time I met you in Asia. And it's pretty exciting to see how your family has changed since that time. So guys, amazing. You guys are taking Jenda to school. That's what you guys are doing here in the U.S. And you're excited. Are you ready to go to college?
I'm super excited. My brother was just asking me a few minutes before this if I was more excited or nervous, and I said both, but I would say excited. I just think it's going to be a super cool experience.
Tell me what you're most excited about.
I think I'm most excited to have such a diverse and cool community. Growing up overseas, I think I've had a lot of experience with people who are international students or who have lived overseas, but I think at college I'll have much more diversity from people who have spent their entire lives in the States to people who are international students and even like a mix of both like I am as a TCK. So I think that's going to be super cool to find connections that way.
Tell me, what is a TCK?
A TCK is a third culture kid. That's basically one of the terms we learn at like 5 years old during our different conferences and stuff, which kind of helps encapsulate kids who grow up in cultures different from that of their own or their parents.
Yeah, you're going to be like an international student, but look like all the national students. Like, it's going to be crazy for you.
Yeah, it's going to be crazy.
Yeah,
I'm excited.
I'm excited for you too. I think if you could have any upbringing that prepares you for that, you've had it. You've had
for
it.
sure.
The communities you've lived in and been a part of. But oh my goodness, I can't imagine what your parents are thinking. How are you guys feeling about your oldest going to school?
Oh, man.
On the other side of the planet.
Yes. Yeah, I think I've been excited and dreading this time, but I think what's helped is we've had people do it ahead of us. And so, intellectually, I think, yes, people do this, and people have been doing this, and people do it all the time. But then when it comes to you and to our family and to sending off our first, I think, what are we doing? No, just bring her back. No, she can just stay with us for the rest of her life. But yeah, we've seen the Lord do some pretty incredible things just to cement that decision for Jenda to come back to the States. And so that has been my prayer, is like, Lord, if this isn't something that you want her to do, please just slam that door.
Yeah.
But otherwise, we just take it step by step.
Yeah.
And see where he leads us. I think that's kind of what we've been doing our whole lives.
I love it. And there is a really cool thing listeners may not know, is that Jenda's getting to school with one of her cousins.
Yeah,
and so
that's
are you guys
helpful.
roommating? I assume you're rooming together as well?
Unfortunately, because of the way the school's set up, all of the first years have to room together, so I will actually be rooming with her. But she's actually off campus.
Oh, I thought she was a first year as well. She's already been there.
She's
okay.
a senior actually.
Oh my goodness.
Which is helpful in some ways because she already knows her way around the campus and can help show me in that situation before she leaves.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Before she leaves. Wow. Well, good. You won't be alone. You'll have somebody you know before you even set foot on the campus, and that's going to be great. Well, there's so much more. I love to hear from you, Jenda, over the rest of the day that you're here and how that works. But we'll do some more here in the podcast as well. But guys, really, I've asked you to come because tomorrow we'll get to interview you on the stage during our sermon. And really what we've been talking about is this life of an exile. And we've been talking about the book of Daniel, and a little bit tomorrow I'm going to be teaching from Jeremiah's letter to the exiles in Jeremiah 29. And when I think about how people live in cultures that are not their own, especially when they're in exile, I think about all of our missionary partners. And you guys are kind of an extreme story of that, because you've been in so many different environments, and really from an early on. So I know, Natalie, some of your story, but tell us a little bit, like before you met Andy, you had already left your home, which is South Texas.
Yep.
The South, like some people think San Antonio is South Texas, and I try to correct them. Listen, Texas goes 5 hours further south.
And that's where you'll find me. That's where you'll find my family.
Yeah, so you guys are right there on the border.
Right.
That's where you grew up, in the
Yep.
McAllen area.
That's right.
And so what led you to pursue an international missions career?
Yeah, I think, I went to Texas A&M, and it was during that time that my parents got a divorce, and so that it was a shock to our whole family. So I think that's when I started thinking about what do I believe, and what is this that we as a family had been, semi-pursuing. We went to church as a family. We called ourselves Christians, and we were and are. But I think I didn't understand the depth of what Jesus meant when he said, "Come, follow me." I thought, this is just something we do because we're American, we're Texans.
We're Christians.
We're
It kind of all just kind of
Yes.
goes into one big ball
Yes.
of culture and tradition.
Yes, that's right. And so when that happened, I really started rethinking, what are we doing? And what is life for? And what matters and what lasts? And I was fortunate enough, and I know it was the Lord's plan, to be in College Station, and I got connected with a church called Grace Bible Church as a student. And it was just what I needed at that point, hearing about God's plan for the world and God's plan for us as his followers. And it wasn't necessarily to stay in the same place and be comfortable. It was, he has a plan for his salvation to go to the ends of the earth. And I think even just getting into Scripture and understanding why Jesus came and who he came for, and that there are people around the world who've never heard of him before. And so it was a step-by-step process. I just continued to say yes as the opportunities came. We had the chance to go on a mission trip to Mexico in college, and so I went on that, and I was like, wow, this is amazing how the Lord works in different places. And then when I graduated, there was a team from our church that was going to go into the Middle East for a year, and I said yes to doing that. And so the call has always been what the Lord has put in front of me. It's just taking a step and saying yes. I would never have said at that point, even going to the Middle East for that year, that, this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. I'm going to do this until, the Lord takes me. But it was just saying, I'm going to do what he puts in front of me. And every step of the way, he's shown me he's working in those places too. I met people there who didn't know Jesus, and you share the gospel and you think they're so far from you culturally, but they come to know Christ, and you see everyone's need is the same. They need a Savior, and that's what they're looking for. And so that first year, we saw just the Lord do amazing things. He just let me be in places where he was working to show me, hey, look what I'm doing. Do you want to join this? And so the second year, we were going to go back into the Middle East area, but then the towers came down, 9/11 happened, and it was unknown what was going to happen in that part of the world. So we went to East Asia instead, and that was a totally different place and culture and people, and yet I saw the Lord's heart for that group as well. And so what I'd been reading and studying and seeing in Scripture was real, and it was alive, that God is working. It wasn't just for Paul. It wasn't just for the apostles. It's for us.
Right.
The call is always go, 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 and make disciples of all nations, because people are waiting to hear the gospel. And I actually met Andy when I was in East Asia, and he had the same heart, and the Lord started then and took us on a journey which feels like yesterday, but was 21 years ago. So yeah, ever since, we've just been taking it one step at a time and seeing where the Lord is leading us. And it's always a surprise. I think if you would have told me 10 years ago while we were in East Asia that, the Lord's going to have you someplace else and it's going to be a pretty dramatic process to get you there, I might have said, no way, I'm not doing that. But he's faithful to meet you where you are. And he has. So now we're in the Middle East, and I would have never thought that we'd be there. But here we are.
Well, you guys are amazing in so many different ways. Like one of the things that I enjoy the most about spending time with your family is your understanding that the depth of God's work goes far beyond maybe just the first level believer. So like what I mean by that is if you walk into a church and you meet people in Calvary in McAllen, or whether it's First Baptist in Boerne, you see a lot of great people who love the Lord, but some of them may come and join you. Yeah. But for us, we often think that that's kind of like as deep as it goes. But one of the things I love when I hang out with you guys is like you're bringing people from many different nationalities who have a lot in common in Christ, very little in common culturally. Yeah. And yet they can partner together and go serve communities that are even further distant from the gospel than the ones they're from. And so oftentimes we have this perspective, like because we come from a place that has embraced Christianity in its past and has some cultural form, that this is like God's country, and then we got to go to those other places. But you realize, like you said, as you land in different parts of the world, God's working all of these places. Yeah. And even in the middle of what we might consider like the Christian world, you really live as exiles here as well. You just don't realize it. Like you think you're in the middle of what God's doing, only to find out that you've been, in some ways, seduced by the culture, and you're living a complacent Christian life that doesn't necessarily engage with God's word very much less obedience to his word. And so I really can't wait for Jenda as you like settle into your university and the school for you to see the similarities and the differences from your experiences in different parts of the world that you've grown up in. And it's going to give you, again, such a different perspective. I think it'd be really fun to interview you again a year from now and get an idea.
For sure. It'd be super fun.
Yeah, what you're thinking, what it looks like a year, or even 3 years from now or 4 years. It'd be so much fun. So Andy, again, you're being such a good gentleman. Like,
it's hard for him.
Yeah, he's itching to talk right now.
Look at him. He's like so chill. He's like, this is about my girls and my wife. I love it. And so exciting. Well, Andy, you did the same thing. Like you left, we love Texas, and Texas is God's country for everyone listening to this
Amen.
podcast. But if you go to California, some people think it's like a great place where God's country people vacation. So what does that say? I don't know. But you grew up in Colorado, and I don't even know to say Arizona State, but whatever, Sun Devils are out there somewhere. But how did you end up feeling the call and end up in a foreign environment, leaving one of the most beautiful places in the world, Colorado, to go to some others? But
yeah, it's been interesting, this idea of being in exile. Recently, I've been looking at Philip in the book of Acts and just seeing like he was a Hellenistic Jew, which meant that he wasn't from like Judea or Jerusalem. He grew up speaking Greek. And in that culture, and yet his faith and his religion was very different. So like being able to operate bilingually and understanding two different cultures set him up for the rest of his kind of journey. And I think Natalie and growing up on the border in the valley, people are set up like that. They're already ready. They're able to embrace different cultures and backgrounds and ethnicities. And I grew up in Boulder.
it's like the border, right?
It's like a little bit different. Where I tell people, when I was growing up, you could believe anything you wanted as long as it wasn't in Jesus.
Okay.
You could worship the rocks. You could worship the animals. You could have crystals and whatever. Those were all cool. Aliens, whatever. But
Aliens.
Jesus was the bad thing because it was exclusive. And so in my mind, as I began to come to know Jesus, especially in my freshman year of high school, it was like, okay, God, you can use me even in my friend group. And even with a few Christians, like he could work through us. And I think that was a big realization. By the time I got to college, I kind of expected, okay, God, what do you want me to do here? And like Natalie said, each step along the way is just, hey, who have you put in our path that we can love, that we can encourage, that we can help see this good news that you offer to everybody? And so I was a wrestler back in the day, and I was in Colorado Springs and doing some training that summer, and I was driving a lot between my home and the Springs, and I was delivering pizzas, and I worked at Dollar Rental Car, and so I had a lot of like time in a car, and I was listening to talk radio, and they're talking about all these things that were happening in East Asia, both economically and spiritually, and how the church was growing and these people were open. They were asking for Bibles, and God started planting this seed in my heart to say, hey, maybe you need to go and be a part of this. And so I went back to that next school year, and I talked to my best friend, and I said, hey, what if we go to East Asia this next summer? And he looked at me and he was like, you're crazy. We were thinking about doing a summer mission trip, maybe, Mexico, Latin America, someplace, because we could speak some Spanish. We like the food. And so when I come in and I say, hey, what about East Asia? He just thought I'd lost my mind. And so I'm trying to cast vision, saying, they really need these things. And it's almost like we're kind of like secret agents, because we go in and we can't tell people what we're doing, and we're using code words and all this stuff, which is really what we do there. And he said, I'll pray about it. And we are going to this winter conference. And he said, I'll decide by the time of this winter conference. So we show up, and the theme of this conference is now, like N-O-W. And they have the T-shirts, and the T-shirts could have said now. They could have had any other language, but on the T-shirt is printed Shenzai, which is Chinese for right now. I was like, that's the sign. Yeah, God's calling us to go. And at that point, he was just like, okay. And so we ended up going. It was all student-led. There was 9 of us. No like official adults or staff leaders going on this trip. And we go into the city. Natalie's team's working there, and they're already seeing God work. And we show up. And I said, we're like the worst missionaries ever. We didn't have any like cultural knowledge, no language. We were really goofy. We would just like make a spectacle and scene wherever we went. The 5 guys, we all bleached our hair like white, and
Has it stayed that way?
Yeah,
Time?
Well, as if they didn't stand out enough.
Right.
My best friend, he's 6'6", like 320 pounds. So he's like a mountain that moves.
That's a big guy.
He's a big guy. And so we just got to see God in a new way, where our box of like how big God was just blown apart. We're like, wow, God can use very insignificant, unwise, immature students like us. And we saw this hunger, and people said, yeah, I want to believe this. And we're like, you do? Like, really? And we were there for 6 weeks initially, and we started calling them Miracle Mondays. It's like every week, at the beginning of the week, we'd go out, and God would just bring somebody that was already searching for him, and they'd come to Christ. And it was interesting. It was during our last couple days in country, and they had challenged us. They said, would you come back? And we all wanted to come back at some point. We're like, oh, this is cool. We want to keep being used by God, but is it realistic to actually do this? And so me and my roommate, we're talking, laying in bed, and just what would it be like to come back one day? And one of us said, it'd be easier to come back now because we're over the initial culture shock, jet lag. We're figuring out some language. We already have these relationships that we can continue to follow up with. But here's all the reasons that we can't do that. You know, we have scholarships. None of us had finished school. We had jobs, different relationships, loans. And it was in that moment that I felt like God was asking me this question. This whole summer, when you've been talking to your friends here about who I am, what have you been telling them? And I thought, well, I've been telling them, it doesn't matter if your family kicks you out. If the university finds out that you're a Christian, they say you can't study here anymore. Like, Jesus is worth it. Follow Jesus. He's worth it. It doesn't matter if he changes your plans and you lose everything. Jesus is worth it. And then the question came back. It's like, what are you doing right now? And I just felt conviction. I'm like, oh man, I'm a hypocrite. I'm like, yeah, you guys can give up on really important things in your life, but I'm not willing to do that. I have my plans. And so I just said a simple prayer. I'm like, God, if you want me to come back, I'll come back. And so the next couple of weeks was kind of crazy, and everybody said, no, this isn't going to work. And yet 3 weeks later, I was on a plane coming back to spend a year in East Asia, and I had dropped out of school, and it was all these crazy things, and yet just being faithful, and God was opening all these doors that seemed to be closed. And the advice I got was just, even if that door seems closed, just keep walking. And see, if it's closed, you turn around and you go back to whatever that plan was. And yet, as I'd come to each door, it would just open and allow me to continue to go further. And it's interesting thinking about this right now, but I feel like a lot of our life has been like that overseas. Is we have a plan, and then actually God's doing something in a different way. And so it's like, oh, there's a different door that we weren't expecting to be open. Here's our strategy, and we're doing this, and yet God is saying, hey, here's some international students over here who are really excited about sharing their faith and starting a movement. And here's this group that's over here, and can you work with this church and these people? And we're like, yeah, okay, God, if you give us these things, we're willing to trust you and take some steps of faith. And it doesn't make it easier. It's nicer when things go according to our plan, like Natalie was saying. And yet to see, hey, will you trust me and walk through this next door? And we don't know what's on the other side. And yet to say he's faithful, even in the difficulties, even in the hardship. If he's with us, that's worth it.
And it kind of gets us to the key, I would say the whole point of maybe an exile's experience, kind of coming back to that is there's always difficulty, there's tragedy, there's cultural misunderstandings, there's extreme challenges. Sometimes there's absolute opposition. Mm-hmm. Some of probably our team's favorite stories is Natalie's stories from some of your early getting interrogated in this group and arrested over here and sitting into this. And then you're, telling stories that Andy would leave and then the police would come to the door, and these kind of,
they knew when he left.
Yeah. And you've got these stories where you're not just living in a place where things are difficult. You're living in a place where you face opposition and challenge and difficulty. And it seems foreign, I think, for an American at times to put themselves in that position. And they might even judge, like, why would you put a family or have a family in that kind of position? I think the bold ones probably have those kind of things. They wouldn't say it because they're like, maybe there's some guilt, even like, well, I would never do a thing like that. But in the end, like, they don't realize you have the same decisions and choices all the time here. Maybe not with the risk, definitely not with the clear opposition that you might have in some of the places that you guys have lived. But you still choose daily to seek him, to look for opportunities, to go out, put yourself in a position where you can have a miracle Monday. You could have stayed at home and skipped those Mondays. You could say, well, I'm too busy. My life is too busy. My school needs my attention, my whatever. That's the way it always is going to be. People don't seem to realize that life is life no matter where you live it.
That's right.
And people are people no matter where you are.
That's right.
And generally people are very, very similar. They hang out with their family, they're preparing food, they have guys' roles, whether it's hard work in the fields or whether it's hard work in a insurance company like you might find here, or whether it's a mom's roles. They're often very similar all around the world. And the challenge is to really deviate from your daily plan to do something that makes a difference in someone else's life. Yeah. And I do think that it seems to me that our lives in the United States are just so filled with activity that it's really hard to find space and time to do things for a stranger or to even seek out strangers. But it's one of those things we talk about often, right? So we've already filled up.
Could I ask a question?
Please do, but I was going to ask one. But go ahead,
Okay,
Andy.
I'll ask.
How often do I get you in
I'll ask
this
one of
place?
my daughter. Because
I wish you guys could see Jenda's face right now. She's like, what am I about to step into? Here we go.
No, because the theme of living as an exile.
Sure.
She grew up in this kind of environment, and
I'll just say, not by choice.
Not
Yeah,
my
not
choice.
by choice.
That's
Like,
right. Yeah,
we
that's
chose
right.
to do it.
People don't know
That's
that
right.
missionary kids or
They don't choose it.
what'd you call it? Third culture.
Third culture
CKs.
kids.
Yeah,
TCKs.
TCKs. They're kind of drug into this.
They are.
And
They are.
and while it might be normal for you, you have to deal with the fact that it's not normal for everyone else.
Yeah.
And so go ahead, ask the question.
I think you know the question I'm going to ask, but yeah, can you explain like what it's been like to grow up in this kind of world and what you've learned and how you've experienced God even in those difficulties, or how you've experienced them, if you have?
That's a really long question.
There's a lot in there. There's a lot in there.
Well, I think it's funny when we start off the podcast and you're even talking to my parents and they're like, their exile was even being overseas or living overseas. But I feel like growing up, I never really experienced that, even being different from the norm, because at least compared to America life, I didn't have a picture of what that would be like, so I had nothing to compare it to. So at least for me, it didn't feel like I was like deprived of anything in that sort of lifestyle. That was like very normal to even grow up in a place where we were one of few different foreign families, or we'd go to local schools and be in a place where ultimately it just wasn't really our own culture or a part of that.
If you had grown up in McAllen, it would have been almost as foreign
Right.
in some places.
Right.
Like our kids moving here to Boerne was as culture shock as them moving anywhere,
I'm
because
sure.
they had grown
Yeah.
up with 97% Hispanic.
right.
They came here and they're like, oh, where's all the normal people? So
Right.
Yeah, for sure. And I would say, I think a part of even understanding and developing my relationship with God just has to do with growing up. And a lot of that happens even in the transition periods, I would say, because even over the past 5 years, I think we've moved around a lot. Up until I was 13, we were basically in the same, like 2 cities in the same place. So I would say my form of exile was actually probably the first time we ever moved back to the States, because, well, it was hard because it was during COVID, so everything was shut down and kind of deprived you from connection on one side. But on the other side, I also didn't have any of like the old connections, like friends, families, or even like familiarity that I did before. So
and that exile was right here in San Antonio.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. So how
was a while
funny
ago.
that our norm was your exile,
Yeah.
and how funny that is.
yeah. But I think as I've grown and matured in my relationship with God, I've learned that there's more than one way to feel comfortable, and that ultimately, even I'm thinking about my future when I go to college in California, how that's going to be very different from anything I've ever experienced before. But I think through all of this moving and transition, God's kind of called me to more rely on Him as a sense of home and a sense of familiarity, because I think growing up as a TCK, or even just growing up where you're moving a lot or just around the world, you see that a lot of things, they do come and go very quickly.
Well, one of the things that you're talking reminded me when we were together in the city where you guys lived just a few months ago. You guys were relating that because of kind of some new government regulation and oversight, many of your friends have been invited to leave.
That's a nice way to say
the
that.
kind
That's the
way to say it, right? And in that, I think you specifically said, Jenda, I said, are you excited? Are you going to be missing your friends? She's like, well, all of my friends all
are
of
gone.
them are gone.
Mm-hmm.
And so she's like, I'm excited because I could start over new and fresh and not in a place that I used to have friends and now I don't.
Yeah.
So even that brought another form of exile. Like you were there, you were stable, you had people that you guys had lived with in another country, and then now you're living in this country together, and then they all got pushed out. And so I'm praying for you. I'm praying that God would give you good friends, close friends,
you.
friends that will
Yeah.
help you feel comfort and home, and even this sense of belonging.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the most difficult things for freshmen anywhere, but especially when you're coming into a very new environment. And if you're listening today, pray for Jenda. This is a big change. Her family's across the world, and that's going to be a new challenge for both you guys and your parents.
Yeah.
And so, I do want to speak to that just for a moment. Almost everywhere you've lived, there's been that tension, the tension that at any time everything can change, and we've witnessed it in a number of times, and even while you guys were, I think at conference in Thailand and COVID, you didn't even get to go home and pack your things. So, speak to maybe just for a moment what it's like living in that space, that maybe insecure space where you're just not sure. Then where do you put your confidence? Where do you gain confidence?
Oh, that's good. It's not a fun place to be, for sure. So I think for people listening, or for people who look at our lives and think, oh, they have a toughness about them. I don't know that we're tough. I think we feel all of it, but we get to see the flip side of that too. We get to see God's provision in ways that I think you don't get to see if you don't live that way. And so I'd hope to say we're also not stupid in the sense that we don't just want to do things to make our lives chaotic.
You're not foolish on purpose, right?
Right.
It's not like we're choosing.
But there is a foolishness about it. If you looked at our lives, even I think we have people sometimes asking us, well, what's your 5-year plan? And I can't answer that.
We're like,
I don't
we have
know.
a hope for the next 12,
I would
maybe
love.
18.
Yeah, that's
18
right.
months,
18 months. I think that would be lovely. As a mom, as a security and comfort seeker at my core, that's what I want. I want to be able to give someone my 5-year plan. I want to be able to say, well, this is what we're doing and this is how we're going to do it. I've never had that. I haven't been able to have that. But I think it's when you choose to follow Christ in the ways that he specifically calls you to, you don't get that. You don't get to give your 5-year plan, because he's saying, follow me. That's the plan. And so he's good in that he is directing and he does have the plan, but we don't always get to see it. So it's just this constant call to trust the Lord. And that's really hard. I mean, I've been at places where I've just been done and empty. Like I cannot, even making our move to the Middle East during COVID, Andy came to me and said, what if we do this? Because I always feel like Andy's kind of always ready to go. But me, I'm thinking about my kids. I'm thinking about, well, what are they going to do? They're just in this really hard period of time. I've got middle schoolers and high schoolers that we're going to move to a different country and culture. That's crazy. And so at those points, my prayer to the Lord has been, Lord, if you want this to happen, you have to be the one to will and work within me for your pleasure, because I've got nothing at this point. And he's faithful to do that. He's faithful to do that. So my challenge is to continue to stay open to what the Lord has for us and to continue to remember he is good. He's our good Father. He has good things for us. And we see that, and he's allowed us to see that. And I think the steps that we've taken in the discomfort and the instability, we get to see, an East Asian student that we saw come to Christ who's now leading the ministry in East Asia, and he's visiting us in the Middle East asking, how can we send more people from East Asia to the Middle East?
Sure.
That's, who gets to see that?
Yeah.
Not a lot of people. And so every step that we take in trusting the Lord, and it's hard, and there's no great guarantees, and it doesn't mean, hey, your life's going to be great and neat. It's going to be messy and hard, but you get Jesus. It's like you get me. That's what you get.
Yeah.
And if you see the way Jesus lived and the way his first followers lived, it was rough. It was rough. And we don't live that rough.
No. There's so much amazing what you're saying. Like, one of the things I love about it is, even in your insecurity and the challenges that you guys face, and even your lack of a 5-year plan or whatever that might be, like, when we visit you and we see the church that you guys are a part of, we see people who see your instability as extremely stable.
Yes.
So you guys get to be that stability for so many others whose lives are even more chaotic or even more, what's the word, temporal. Like, their reality may change even faster, and even like the speed at which they're trying to deal with life and trust God is even. Even it's far more extreme than yours, which is far more extreme than mine.
Absolutely.
But beyond that, like, there's this verse, we're going to talk about it tomorrow, and it's this verse I think that is so incredibly misquoted that says, for I know the plans I have for you, says the Lord, right? Plans to prosper you, not to harm you, plans to give you hope in the future. And we hear that verse all the time as a way to say, God has got good things in store for you. But the context is that he's writing this to people who've lost everything. They're living in exile in Babylon. And he's telling them, you're probably going to die here. But don't worry, I'm with you. That's basically what he's saying. In the midst of all of the insecurity you're facing as exiles in Babylon, your families have been lost. Your homes and properties have all been taken. You're living in the pagan foreign world that is your enemy, the ones who literally conquered you. Now you're living among them. And he says, when you seek me, you will find me. Right? And so, like, golly, we sometimes measure even our faithfulness by God's blessing of our physical selves, whether we have the home we want, or the family we want, or the stability we want, or whatever that might look like. In the end, it really is simple. Do we have enough of Jesus for today? And I think that's what he promises us, right? The daily bread kind of conversation is, give us today what we need. And he's faithful to do that most of the time. And if not, he's going to be there with you even in the midst of it.
That's right.
He doesn't provide, it's a day to fast, I think.
A day to fast?
Yeah, a day to fast.
Oh, I was like, a day to fast? Like, you like ignore your phone for a day?
When you don't get your daily bread, that means fast for a day.
It's fast for a day. Yeah, Paul says there's times when I had plenty and times when I was in need.
That's right.
Times when I was like shipwrecked. There's all these qualifications. You know that our region has just experienced a terrible disaster in the last few weeks, and it's really hard to talk about God's goodness in the face of a terrible natural disaster that has cost so many people so many things.
Yeah.
And yet you can easily say, listen, while you may be going through things that I can't explain and I can't condone, I can say that God is with you.
That's right.
And he's close to you.
That's right.
And people either choose to reject him or to draw near to him. Like, it's like the two things. And so, guys, you guys have been not only drawing near to God throughout your time. I'm sure you've had moments where you wondered if he cared, but like in the middle of all of it, it's been fun to walk alongside you for 15 years and to watch your family grow and change. And Jenda, to watch you grow from little girl to going off to college now. It's super exciting. And so we're almost done, but Andy's got, one more thing to say here.
I just wanted to say, it's been amazing. Like Natalie said, is in these times of hardship, even not being able to go to this country that we had spent, 15, 16 years in, and our kids had grown up in, and that
you
was
all
their
speak the
home.
language, know this place.
And I think we're kind of in a pit, and then to say, okay, there's this new opportunity. And as we were seeking, Natalie was kind of explaining this, but our prayer was really, God, lead us to a place that would be good for our family. Like, we can go anywhere, but we just really need you to take care of our family. And I think when we were young too, with kids, it's like, these kids belong to you. Yeah. They don't have a choice in this. And yet, if we just see them as our kids, it's easy to say, oh, how are we hurting them? How are we helping them? Instead of saying, God, these are your kids. We're stewards of them and their lives, and you've given them to us to love the best we can. And so we believe that if you're leading us, you're leading our family in this. And one of probably the biggest joys in probably the last 5 years is with Jenda, when we're living in this new place in Middle East, and she said, this feels like home. And it was just like, oh, thank you, Jesus, because that's what we were praying for, is that we could have a place where our kids could thrive and grow and have friends. and not just for this ministry, but that we could do well as a family.
I love it, guys. I, again, am so thankful for each of you. And Natalie, I would love to hear your thoughts.
I just have one more. I think
Jenda, you're next. By the way. You're gonna have one more chance here.
As a mom,
Closing words from everybody.
Closing words. As a mom, I think, your biggest fear is that you're going to hurt your kids in some way, or not do the best that you can do, or do something that just, tanks them. And the biggest concern is that security. I want my family to do well. But I think, and this is from me too, because I have this tendency to put my kids above all other things. And in God's economy, he says, seek me and my kingdom first, and all those things will be added. And so a lot of times, even still, I get that mixed up. I think, well, we got to make these decisions. Of course, you have to think of your kids. That's, you don't want to go do something and see your kids suffering and then not do anything about it. But as we follow the Lord and we do these hard things and we make these decisions, I need my kids to see that, because I want them to know this is real. Jesus is real. God's kingdom is real. What he says is true. He's coming back. This earth is temporary, and you have a mission, and you have a job, and we have a responsibility as his people to show the world the love of Christ. That is what we are here to do. And so if I can't do that, what are my kids seeing? And so really the best thing that I can do for my kids is follow Jesus and trust him that they're going to see that. And that's my prayer. Lord, whatever you're going to take them through, whatever you're going to do with our family, do it so that my kids will know you more. That's it. So the rest is up to you. You do what you want to do. If that's the result, then I'll take any of it.
Well, it's just like you're speaking to and expressing what every believing parent wants for their children.
Yeah.
And yet the environment in which you guys live is so very different than what most Christian parents have provided for their children. And so, just like any pastor's family, any ministry family, our deepest desire is that our kids would love the Lord with the same heart and passion that we do, and even more so. And yet you also know that comes with risk and difficulty and challenges, and everyone deals with those things differently. And so you guys have been amazing. I've been walking alongside. I know. And so as we finish, you've listened to this kind of crazy conversation that's gone all over the place, Jenda. Anything that you'd like to say as we finish up?
Well, I think through this time, I've just realized how grateful I am for my parents, both just in how they raised me, but how also they love the Lord and inspire me to do so. As we're talking about all these different exiles and transitions, I think one thing that came to mind is what my mom would say, especially when we were in San Antonio during COVID and we weren't really sure what we were going to do, even year by year. But she was like, at least wherever we go, we're all going to be together and we're all going to be a family. So I think I'm really grateful, and what got me through a lot of times was just the fact that I knew I'll always have my parents and my brothers, and that we really went through some really unique experiences. And I think it's a connection that can't ever be severed, even after I go to college. So I'm just really grateful for you guys. Thank you so much.
Well, we are so thankful for all of you, and can't wait to see even how these other boys grow up in these next few years. And they're totally out of their minds, by the way. Like, Jenda's so chill and calm, and so
that's why they weren't invited to this podcast today.
Blaze and Titus out there,
actually love to wear
those guys will be
stuff.
great too. It'll be such a different flavor on a podcast. It'd be awesome. Well, guys, those of you who are listening today, we've gone a little bit long, but I want you to just remember why we do the podcast. It's so that we can remember why God calls us. Why does he make his face shine on us? Why is he gracious? It's so that he can make his name known among the nations and his salvation to all the peoples. So the real simple question is, why does God bless us? And it's because he has a purpose for us that goes beyond us. So wherever you are, whatever you're doing today, be a blessing to those around you. Step out of your comfort zone and make a difference in someone's life. Hope you've enjoyed this. If you have any questions or comments, please reach out to us. If you'd like to know more about this amazing family, let us know. We'd love to get you connected to them. Have a wonderful day, and God bless. We are so thankful that you joined our podcast today. We would love to hear any feedback you may have for us. Remember, Psalm 67 says, "May God be gracious to us and bless us, and make his face shine on us, so that your ways may be known on earth and your salvation among all nations." Don't forget why the Lord blesses us. It's so that we can be a blessing to those around us. Until next time, God bless.